everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Whether I'm rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to live it to you, the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And I mean, we projected this game. It's the Utah matchup. I think I projected this game to be a loss before the season when I thought that we were going to be Big 12 title contenders. Now we have nothing to play for and laid a borderline egg against the worst Power 4 school in the country. That really could sum up my thoughts for this. But of course, we do have the more complete scouting report. They do come in 8-2, Utah, that is. The two losses on the year are the two favorites to be in the conference championship. Texas Tech, where they got thumped by Texas Tech, and then a very narrow loss to BYU in Provo. So, I mean, losing to two great teams, the favorites to win the conference, even though I still have no idea how BYU keeps winning. I will watch them play poorly for the majority of the game and then look at the score, and somehow they still have like 3 more points than the other team.
Yeah, I really don't know how they do it, because I totally agree with you. For the last 2 years, I have not thought that they were that good of a football team. But here we are 2 years in a row. And, at some point it's a pattern. But Utah is a obviously good football team. And they play well. And they were a team, I think, that got some buzz preseason, rightfully so. I always kind of liked Devin Dampier. But they've had a lot of supporting acts as well, including a freshman quarterback, Bird Ficklin, that has done really well for them the last few games, with Dampier missing bits and pieces of time to injury. So it's they've been a good team, and Dampier has kind of taken the step up a little better than I think some were maybe expecting.
Yeah, and it was bad enough when they had one quarterback, but now they have two, the more passing quarterback and the running quarterback. I think that Dampier was mostly not playing just due to injury, which, Utah has also become famous at this point for this year for messing with availability reports, which that tells you how useful the availability report system is as it stands right now, because there's no enforcement mechanism. That's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and dive straight in to the offensive numbers.
Yeah, so raw stats-wise, they grade out pretty well. Nationally, they're 10th in yards per game, 6th in points per game, 4th and third down rate at 53%. And their red zone percentage is 25th in the country. They're 91%. And a really good rate of those being touchdowns, 80% of them. And then even worse for K-State, they hoard the ball well, too. They're 24th in time of possession. So all of those very efficient offense that doesn't feel the need to rush. And by rush, I mean move quickly, not running the ball. They run plenty.
No, they trust me. They run the ball plenty. And I like that you use the word efficient, and this does get into the next bullet point, but that is kind of if you want to talk about pulling an offense out of the 1980s in terms of philosophy, but in a good way, this is very, very similar to a lot of the old school West Coast offenses that prioritize running the ball, play action, and just being hyper efficient to an annoying degree, which is why there were some critics of Devon Dampier being the quarterback for this team. Little did we know, and by we, I mean sometimes we, but mostly national media. Yeah, there's a way to implement the option game into the West Coast styling as well. So great for everyone else.
Yeah, this team is definitely a little more old school in terms of their offensive philosophy. Their goal is not to win with finesse or make you look in a bunch of different places at once with eye candy. their primary objective is really bullying. That's why they have far more rushing attempts than passing ones, and they run true gap runs like power, trap, and counters at one of the highest rates in the country. So they're a lot like the old Paul Christ Wisconsin teams with an amazing offensive line that they will be utilizing heavily through running the football.
Yeah, first off, they have a total of 449 rushing attempts compared to 283 passing attempts. And I believe at least half of those rushing attempts, or no, far more than half of those rushing attempts are gap runs. So they are going to try and pull linemen, get linemen either out in space or just get them moving so that way they can road grade anyone that is standing in front of them. And, that in and of itself is a solid offensive philosophy if you can build it. I mean, different scheme, but same general principle that if you can run the ball in a very similar way to the Shanahan offense, albeit with more wide zone schemes. Though I guess you can make an argument McVay has done a lot more in the way of power schemes. Rabbit hole we don't need to go down today. It's a philosophy that works at pretty much all levels of football. And once again, when you get to the complementary level, it complements them in the passing game.
Yeah, passing, they carry over more of their pro-style tendencies here by trying to be very efficient with the football. So 60% of their targets are within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage, and 30% of all of their attempts go over the middle. The game plan is pretty obvious but effective. Establish the run and attack over the middle to abuse the fact that linebackers have to get aggressive in their run fits. It's one of the most classic offensive philosophies. Really, it's been around forever.
Yeah, and I do worry to get into to just talk about it for a preview. Given that this scheme's advantage is bullying linebackers, and we just lost our best linebacker for the year. Wonderful.
Yeah, that is definitely a note to look for. I guess a positive draw there is Kleinman believes that Romaine will be back next year, which I was a little bit surprised by. So I guess it comes into play with he didn't have as great of a year as was projected, but bit of a side
hand. Off balls, sorry, that and off ball linebackers just aren't valued as much anymore.
Yeah. Getting into their personnel here, they're more multiple than you might think, given their offensive philosophy being so simply boiled down. And they do run more two tight end sets than most, except for maybe KU. But they still have a lot of their more multiple tendencies mixed up just so they don't have a lot of tells.
So personnel isn't going to really give away what they're going to be doing on any given play, except for what they're already going to do anyway, which is try to bully you. It really is. They do play the brand of football where their goal is to just shove people into lockers. And, I mean, if you can do it, it works. But now we can get into the notable offensive players, which, I think you have one person who's certainly overachieved relative projections, and then a bunch of complementary pieces.
Yeah, so we'll start as we typically do with the quarterback. That's Devin Dampier. Last year, he was a star at New Mexico, transferred up to Utah, and hasn't really missed much of a beat in that transition. A large part of that is because the biggest weapon will always be his legs. He's a significantly better running quarterback than almost anyone we have faced in the entire history of the show. And it may not be very close either. He's a huge threat in the option game, and scrambling is an even bigger threat. What he has in running ability, though, he sometimes lacks in processing and in the deep ball. He has one of the least accurate deep passes in the nation. There's not really a comfortable way around that. He's not someone that is going to really bomb you deep. And a bit of it is arm strength, but most of it's an accuracy problem. He isn't also processing-wise the best either. He, as Ace has put it, a one Mississippi, two Mississippi run kind of quarterback. It's just that his line is so good and his legs are so dangerous that it makes him just such a valuable weapon for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think not necessarily a one-to-one comp, but a good comp would be Johnny Manziel without Mike Evans and put in a different type of offense, which I think is why some people didn't really expect it to work, because Dampier has always been the more playmaker archetype than someone who's dealt well in structure, but the Utah has sort of found a way to complement his more playmaking instincts while still playing in structure. But again, the biggest thing is his deep ball is awful. I think of his attempts more than 20 yards down the field, I think he is completing them at like a rate of 15% or something like that, which is horrid. But it almost doesn't matter because efficiency mixed with ability to scramble and the occasional playmaking ability. I guess the Johnny Manziel without Mike Evans comp doesn't fit very well because Johnny Manziel did have a pretty decent deep ball, at least when he was throwing to Mike Evans, which I'm pretty sure someone who lost their arm could throw a decent deep ball to Mike Evans and he would come down with it. But point still stands. One of the better playmakers at quarterback that we've seen, and almost certainly the best scrambler.
Yeah, Dampier really feels like to me, kind of like I think kind of the final boss of really great group of five quarterback, and that is good enough to transition to being a good power conference quarterback. He is great in terms of making plays, but pure quarterback play, he's just good. And that is because of the accuracy problems. But I mean, his play style allows him to just absolutely dominate competition that's below him. But the deep ball not quite being there for him is really the main limiting factor that prevents him from being like NFL draft pick type of quarterback. And he may still find himself in the NFL just due to how athletic he is, but he does just have some limiting factors. But that's not to say he's a bad quarterback. Far, far from it.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add other than, I mean, Tyler Huntley has had a career in the NFL, and he was a Pro Bowler, basically just being athletic.
Yeah. So I think we can move into the next guys here. Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. I'm left tackle, offensive tackle, number 55 and 71. This might very well be the best duo of offensive tackles in the country and is without debate the best one in the Big 12. Spencer Fano, he is a slam dunk top 10 NFL draft pick. He was only given up 5 pressures the entire season and is not allowed a pressure since the BYU game about a month ago. In the run game, he just envelops people. In the passing game, he is able to fend people off because of his absurd strength and great athleticism. And we talk there a lot about physical traits, but he's still very technically sound as well. Lomu, more of a traditional left tackle, arguably a better pass blocker than Fano, only giving up 6 pressures on the year, and 3 of them came against David Bailey. And I think facing David Bailey and only giving up 3 pressures is a monumental achievement, and he should frankly put that on his resume. I think that's pretty shocking.
Yeah, you had a battle of potential first round talent. Lomu's getting projected as somewhere in like the first 2 rounds. He's one of those guys that I personally think should be drafted in the first round. It's very similar to Patrick Paul, the Houston tackle a few years ago. Now, granted, Patrick Paul played for a bad Houston team, but Lomu, I think, has an outside chance of being drafted in the first round. And Fano he is going to be drafted in the first round. He's projected to be a top 5 pick. And you just don't get 2 first-round guys on the same offensive line. That just doesn't really happen all that much, especially at the same time. Like, occasionally you'll get a guy who's a true freshman that ends up being an NFL draft guy down the line. Someone's ahead of them. They end up getting drafted. No, the stars perfectly aligned for these two to be playing on the same offensive line. And from there, it doesn't even really matter what the rest of the offensive line does because, they have 2 stalwart tackles, and the interior is fine. They're just not 2 first-round draft picks.
Maybe I need to talk to your Mark about redistributing the offensive line talent in this conference, because I think that we could use one of them. I don't care which one. I'd take one. I'm not particular. But that I think takes us into the next guy, Wayshawn Parker, running back, wears number 1. Transfer from Wazoo. He's slotted in and is certainly a great beneficiary of one of the better offensive lines in the entire country. That said, he still has plus strength as a runner and plus vision. Anytime your lead back is averaging over 7 yards a carry on over 100 carries, I'm got to be pretty happy with that. As a team, they're averaging 6.2 yards per carry right now, which includes a lost sack yardage from the quarterbacks. That's a full 2 yards ahead of what K-State's averaging right now. 1.9, I'm rounding up. K-State's at 4.3.
God, Wayshawn Parker's kind of a galloping runner, which sounds very strange to say, but that's really the best way that I can kind of describe him. Is he's capable of making a lot of smaller cuts while still keeping up his acceleration, which, that makes him a more natural fit for a power offense, especially because with power offenses, or power running offenses, I should clarify, you're not really making any insane adjustments at the line of scrimmage. That's more of a zone thing because you're reading where you have to cut. With power schemes, where you're going. It's just a matter of making someone miss when you get there. And that's something that Wayshawn Parker, mixed with his contact balance, I think he is a really good understanding of how power runs develop. And it helps when you have this offensive line, which is, splitting the Red Sea for you.
Yeah, that takes us to the last notable offensive player, and that's a Ryan Davis, a different Ryan Davis from ours, as I'm sure you could infer, but he does have a similarity.
They are white.
That's it. That's and their names. But he's a over-the-middle white receiver. Not a ton else to say other than that. He's a good receiver. He leads them. He is approaching 700 yards, has 57 receptions, leads the team in yards by over 200 and receptions by 22. So far and away their top receiving option.
Yeah, it is interesting that they have there's a massive gap between Ryan Davis and the next receiver, who has the next highest receiver is not a wide receiver. It is a corner with 13 catches on the year. So, some two-way player action there. But, Ryan Davis is their main receiving threat just because he's so good working over the middle and just being sure-handed.
Yeah, they've got a weird wide receiver situation. Because if you take out other pass catchers like tight ends and running backs, you go from Ryan Davis to 57 catches and 659 yards to next is Tobias Merriweather, who has 8 catches for 130 yards. So They only have one wide receiver with double-digit catches on the year. They do have a cornerback, Smith Snowden, with 13 catches on the year, although I imagine he probably changed positions and is not actually a corner anymore because he's run the ball and caught the ball. Either that or he's a two-way guy. I'm not sure. But it is pretty surprising to see a defensive back have more catches than all but one of the wide receivers on the team, and they still have a great offense. So they're doing weird stuff over there, but it's working for them.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that if you look at Smith Snowden's stats this year, he has recorded a pick and has 26 tackles and 9 passes defensed.
All right, so he might just be like a two-way player then, because he has like 8 carries and 13 catches. So, like, he just diet Travis Hunter, I guess.
Sure. We dealt with the real one last year. I really don't want to deal with that again. But, I mean, even before, I will say that if K-State had Austin Romaine, I would feel significantly better about this matchup, just because their entire offensive philosophy is bully the linebackers and bully everyone else. And Austin Romaine, if nothing else, has refused to be bullied his entire career. So now we're relying on, Asa Newsome, who's unfortunately just been so injury prone. Gabe Powers, who I think has been fine as a run defender. Rex Van Wy, who I still say should be playing Sam linebacker, but Des Purnell has just blocked him ever since he's gotten here. I mean, who else even? Maybe we see Darian Whitaker, someone who in his film had, if nothing else, aggression down in spades.
That was kind of the next name I was thinking of, was Darian Whitaker, because he was somebody that kind of preseason was getting probably behind Logan Bartley the most buzz of any of the true freshmen. But I think he got hurt in camp right before the season started, and so we haven't really seen him. I think we've seen Weston Polk and Sawyer Schilke in special teams, and Polk, I think, maybe got a little bit of run and garbage time in a couple of our games. But yeah, I'd love to see Darian Whitaker, provided that he's been able to keep his weight up, because he was listed at like 6'3", 240. So, like obvious run situations, like just to have like a body that hasn't just been decimated by this season to just throw at a couple of All-Americans, like, I'm not opposed to it.
Good luck, buddy. Trial by fire. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It really does not get any easier when we start talking about their defense.
Yeah. Really, like, beyond the numbers, until Kyle Whittingham retires, potentially even after, Utah is going to continue to be one of the most schematically cohesive and intelligent defenses in the country. I mean, even when their offense hasn't been great, they've always had defense as a calling card. And Whittingham has just always been so good on that end of the ball.
I have no idea I don't know how Utah's DB's coach hasn't been poached. Hang on. Because I think he's been there for a while, but it's because it's their DC.
Yeah, and he's their head coach when waiting. So
yeah, and he's white. No, he's not. Is he? I don't know, man. No, he's not. Good Lord. The picture they showed was decidedly not him. But yeah, their defensive backs have always been ridiculous, and by that I mean we'll talk about them later. But now we get stats. Yippee!
Yeah, numbers wise, 35th in yards per game, but 10th in points per game, and 14th in third down percentage at 31%. However, they are tied at 78th in red zone percentage, but that ties with Texas Tech because, like Texas Tech, they are teams that just don't let the other offense get to the red zone very much. They've only allowed 20 red zone possessions this entire season. We are now through 10 games. So only 2 red zone possessions per game for the other team. That's pretty fantastic.
There's no other way to put that other than that's frankly ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't like that very much, and it scares me a bit. Yeah. But this team, the defense's identity, similarly old school, kind of like the offense. They're going to play a lot of man coverage and lock down your passing game. They want to make you beat them straight up before they're even going to consider getting out of man coverage. The only team that's been able to force them out of man coverage this year is Texas Tech. Not even BYU was able to do that despite winning. And so going to be very challenging to get Utah away from their bread and butter defense.
Yeah, for perhaps the first time in a while, I will disclose which games that I kind of watched going into writing these notes, and that was Texas Tech, BYU, and Cincinnati. Specifically the Cincinnati game, I think I counted a grand total of like 4 defensive reps where they weren't playing man coverage. And that's Cincinnati, who's going to use a lot of motion and bunch sets to be like, haha, I can't play man coverage. No, they're gonna. Like, you're not going to stop them.
Yeah. Speaking of man, their tendency towards man coverage, it also tends to negate one of the weaknesses of their 4-2 structure. They play a lot of cover 1, which means that they have another defender in the box, often their nickel corner. They were one of the innovators or early adopters of the 4-2 structure that everybody's really playing, and they've mastered that. Whittingham's been there for 20 years now, so they've had plenty of time to refine that system as much as they reasonably can.
Yeah, and you give this defensive structure to just about anyone and give the defensive backs coaching that they get, you will have a consistently great defense no matter where you go. But it also helps when you have a really, really good free safety, which Utah's seemingly had since Whittingham has gotten there. But we'll talk about that when the time comes.
Yeah. And last note on the general defense, they really are great at knowing exactly how to blitz out of the 4-2. And because they play so much man coverage, they send more pressure anytime their man coverage assignment is blocking, which is called green dogging, which I did not know.
So basically, say your man coverage assignment is the tight end. If the tight end is staying in the block, congratulations, you have another blitzer. And most of the time it's a delayed blitzer, so that tends to get people open in terms of pass rush lanes a bit more often than otherwise. The supposed counter to that is just kind of 2 people playing the waiting game, which is very funny because there are some reps where you will see like a running back and a linebacker just kind of start staring at each other. It's like, all right, you blitzing? I don't know. Are you running a route? I don't know. It depends on if you're blitzing. So you do get situations like that, and that is very funny to watch.
I was going to say the natural counter to that, like you said, is like a check and release or a block and release from the tight ends or the running backs. But yeah, disciplined defense like Utah is, of course, going to be ready for that. They're going to know, by body language, when a tight end or running back standing there, and they're either waiting to release or they're just waiting because they're waiting on someone to block. So it's not always a if X then Y that simply. So especially with such an intelligent defense.
Yeah, and the intelligence of the defense really does extend to all their players, which I think this is the first time that we've had 4 players, well, technically 5, 4 or more players on both sides of the ball we have to cover.
Yeah, I think you're right because, I mean, Tech, I think we just said the entire D-line and Jacob Rodriguez. which was a fair play on our part. But offensively, I don't think we got beyond 3. But yeah, this Utah team's super talented, and we'll start with Teo Johnson. Safety, the versatility to play almost anywhere in the defensive backfield other than maybe corner. But he has the proper athleticism to make all of his very aggressive instincts work. He's got a quick lateral trigger and coverage, meaning he's pretty much always in position or at least close enough to limit any damage that may come from a play. He's only given up 6 catches this entire year and has been tested so few times by teams that have a conscious passing game that his passer rating allowed actually averages out to 0.0, which is not very fair.
Yeah, no, it's even less fair when you consider that he's playing free safety. So not only does, when people are targeting him, they don't do well, they're having to target him plus another human being who's playing coverage on whoever they're throwing to. So I guess you could say that's a give and take. Sometimes it gets credited to him, and it depends on how you grade out the passer rating. And I think you can argue that passer rating isn't the greatest stat anyway. However, I would posit to you 0.0 is insane no matter how flawed the metric is.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that, because I do agree passer rating not the best measuring stick, but it can often do pretty well at explaining extremes. And in this case, an extreme, and I think it's right on the money. So, but plenty more players to get through here. The next one, John Henry Daly, other edge rusher. Which David Bailey was not in this conference having the year that he's having. John Henry Daly would be the easy pick for Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year. He is a bit lighter than you might think at 255, but he's very technically sound and has some of the best true finesse of any pass rusher in the league this year. His calling card is his ability to rush the passer with 9.5 sacks this season and averaging 4.5 pressures per game this year. He's one of the biggest reasons that Utah is able to play as much man coverage as they do, because when John Henry Daly is going to scream off the edge, make it to where the coverage only has to hold up for a few seconds.
Yeah, and as a run defender, he's fine, and it's just because he's relatively light. But it almost doesn't matter, because he's being told at basically all times, hey, your goal is to either contain or rush the passer. And everyone else on the defense just cleans up. That is one of the advantages of a 4-2. You could basically have a guy say, yeah, you're the designated pass rusher at all times. Go nuts. And if the rest of your defense knows what they're doing, you can get away with that. But yeah, I don't think there's a better example of it, at least this year, than John Henry Daly. Just because true finesse rusher, really, really good around the edge. And that's not to say that he doesn't have any power to his game. I think he's just a much, much, much better finesse rusher. I mean, but with how K-State's tackles have been playing this year, well, we'll see. And I do think Pastore is a decent enough matchup for him, even though Pastore is coming off the worst game he's had against the worst defensive line in the conference. But I'm going to keep referencing it, not because I take any pleasure in it, but because at this point it's laugh or cry.
Yeah, I do agree on that. But moving on, Jackson Benny, that's safety, or really their nickel. He's kind of a gambler on the field. He will give up a bit of ground and coverage to try and bait interception, which sounds good on paper, but as the slot defender, it elevates the level of risk. But he does have 3 interceptions and 4 passes defended on the year with that aggression. So he can be picked on in coverage, but he's dangerous enough to where quarterbacks do need to take an extra beat to make sure their guy's actually open and need to make sure they can complete an accurate pass, because he will feed on mistakes from the quarterback.
Yeah, and that's sort of his role. Is he's the very rare playmaking slot corner. which isn't an archetype that you see a lot in. Well, I shouldn't say that you don't see it a lot. A lot of those playmaking slot corners, they end up playing on Sundays and they end up getting moved to like true strong safety. Am I saying that Jackson Benny will play on Sundays? I think he has a chance, but it really is the effect that, I think my guy's up. He's not. It's kind of like Justin Gardner syndrome, but laterally.
I can think of a playmaking nickel in the NFL, though, and that's Jacob Parrish. The year he's met. He's, I think, leading NFL defensive rookies in tackles for loss right now. Just picked off Josh Allen this past weekend. So he has a shot at NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year right now if he keeps up his current level of play. So
famously loved evaluating talent Jacob Parrish.
A guy that we at the Alleycats always knew would go to the pros. So you're welcome, Jacob Parrish, for the early evaluation.
Anyway.
It's all us. Last guy, Jonathan Hall, linebacker. Some might look to his battery mate in the linebacker room, but Hall might actually be the better of the two. And his best trait, a lot like Jackson Benny, is that he's very aggressive and instinctive. And this makes him a natural run defender and blitzer, even if his coverage can be a little iffy at times. That's just kind of linebackers for you.
Yeah. And some people will say that Landry Barton is better. I vehemently disagree. I could not disagree more with that assessment. Barton is that 1990s linebacker, that archetype we've mentioned a few times before, where his goal is to be a heavy linebacker and get tackles, where Jonathan Hall is a much better chess piece and is also, weirdly enough, significantly more aggressive and way better on defense for it, where Barton is kind of sometimes the cleanup guy. Hall is the person who tends to get there first, and that's really important in this type of defense. So offense, really good. Defense, even better. K-State, we're not going to belabor the point. I do not see a world where, outside of some high-tier Sheboynery or a different team showing up, I don't see K-State winning this game. In fact, I think the most likely outcome is K-State getting just decimated by like 3 scores.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think with Jace Brown out for the rest of the season, with the way the season's gone, losing Austin Romaine, Quay playing through some injury right now. J.B. Bradley's been in and out of the lineup. And the run game just is what it is. This team is just like tailor-made to just have Utah obliterate them. Like, Utah is such a physical, talented, and tough team. They are almost certainly in the film room and just salivating at the prospect of playing us. We are like a Christmas gift for this Utah team. I think that they will likely just run all over us on defense, and I think that they're going to absolutely just obliterate our offensive line. And I think Avery's going to have a rough day. Maybe some of it his fault. I bet a lot of it won't even be much of his problem. But I think our offense is really going to struggle in this game. I think our defense has a chance of holding up for a bit, but I don't think it'll last just because I think they're going to be on the field too long in this game. So I think Utah could win this by 4 scores. I really think I see us struggling to get to double digits in this game, and I think Utah's going to be looking at 40. Is probably going to be I don't know if they'll hit that, but I think that's where they're going to aim for. And this one's probably going to be done by halftime.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking for, first off, we don't give betting advice because, firstly, because I don't feel qualified to do so. And secondly, mostly ethical reasons. I think the last time I bet on a sporting event was like 2 years ago. And then I thought about it a little more and realized that, yes, this isn't me getting on a soapbox. This is me just saying that I'm not someone who really enjoys sports betting. If there was some way to bet that Utah would attempt fewer than like 20 passes in this game, yeah, I'd probably do that.
Yeah. Cover. That'd be a good one too. And I think the line's like 16.5 for Utah. But
that'd be enough.
Yeah, I think this is going to be more of a 24 to 31 point win for Utah. It's kind of what I'm thinking here. The score in my head's like 38-10.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be so great when we're back to one episode a week.
We did just pick up some reinforcements and recruiting, though. We got a 5-star long snapper coming in. Could change the game.
All right. Other than that optimistic note, you have anything else?
No. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck, Charlie. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're aggievillealleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltzor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, link found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything between, we're in Liberty, the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.